Well, joining me now is Labor MP and Chair of the House Economics Committee, Daniel Mulino. Daniel Mulino, thanks for your time. What's your reaction to the decision by the Reserve Bank today?
Oh, hi, Andrew, and thanks for the opportunity to come on this afternoon. Look, I think there'd be a lot of people who hold mortgages and in fact, a lot of renters in Australia today, and indeed in my electorate, who would be breathing a sigh of relief. They've had a lot of interest rate rises over the last 13 years, dating back to the previous government. So I'm sure a lot of mortgage holders would be glad to see a pause.
There's no prospect we've seen our last rate rise this year, though, is there, in your view?
Oh, well, look, I'm not going to be trying to get the tea leaves out when it comes to matters like this. But what I would say is that if you look at the RBA's message today, they point to a number of things that they'll be watching over the coming weeks and months. They note that consumption is falling already and that inflation is falling already. So they're both exactly the trends that you'd want to see. So they're going to be looking at those to see whether those trends continue. But they also note that there are some uncertainties, including uncertainties in the global economy. So I don't think anybody can be giving guarantees of anything at this point. But I'd say overall, what you see is an economy where inflation is falling, and we also see unemployment not having risen substantially. So that's a path that I think broadly is a welcome path on the road to inflation ultimately getting back to the 2 to 3% band.
Do you concede that it's convenient for your government that Phil Lowe perhaps departs at a time where rates stop going up and he can become the scapegoat for those interest rate increases?
Oh, look, I think that it's actually been a very important reform in Australia in the last 30 years that we move to a more independent central bank. It's something that I've supported in my whole time in public life, and it's indeed a change that we've seen right across all of the advanced economies. So I think that that change is really important. But when you do move to an independent central bank model, it's then important for that central bank to explain and defend its decisions. That's part and parcel of the overall institutional setting we have now. So I think it's inevitable that when you go through a period like the one we've just had, that the prominence of the decision-making of the RBA is more front and centre in the media.
Now, my colleague Olivia Casely just reported that she expects an announcement on a new Reserve Bank Governor soon, and that she believes the front runner is Jenny Wilkinson, the head of the Department of Finance. What do you say to that?
Well, I'm sure Jenny or anybody who's wanting that job won't want me predicting anything to do with their nomination. But I think I won't comment on any individual person's nomination. But what I would say is that there's been a number of reports recently in the media pointing to quite a deep field. And that's the important thing, I think, is that there's a large number of candidates which the government's looking at and choosing between. And I think that's a reflection of the strength at the top of our financial institutions, that we have a number of people who would be worthy for fulfilling that role. And that's an important thing for our country, that we have good people at the top of all of our key institutions like the RBA, the Treasury and our key regulators. So for me, the fact that you can point to any number of people in the public space who could fill that role well is a good sign.
Just on that, what can you tell us about Jenny Wilkinson? How accomplished is she at her role? What's her background?
Oh, look, so she's obviously very accomplished, and anybody who gets to the role that she's at in a central agency and manages a central agency through difficult times well is somebody who's very accomplished. I don't really think it's sensible for me to be running through her CV. But as I said, I mean, there's been a lot of commentary recently where there's a large number of people who are very suitable for that role, coming from different parts of the public sector at very high levels, and indeed beyond the public sector. So I think the point is that whoever goes into that role, I think, is going to be very well accomplished and will do the job well.